You're a pathetic loser who got dumped by your ex. Yet you went and told his own father that he can't perform. His dad was so embarrassed he even apologized to you on his behalf. And your ex actually showed up in person wanting to prove himself. But when he was in the shower, you secretly laughed at him for lasting only 3 minutes. Plot twist. He dragged you to a men's health clinic for a checkup, all because the report said lack of exercise, poor stamina. I was on the high-speed train with my bestie, loudly trash-talking my ex without a care in the world, when the middle-aged uncle next to us suddenly turned his head and asked, that 6'2" guy who can't get it up you were talking about, is his name Jason?" I didn't get what was going on, so I nodded. "Yeah, that's right." The uncle gave me a look, sighed with deep regret, then pulled out his phone and started furiously texting. I didn't think much of it and went right back to roasting my ex. I never imagined that the moment the train pulled into the station and I got off, I'd see my ex walking straight toward me with that stupidly handsome face of his, sneering as he said, "You've never even slept with me, and you're out here telling my dad I can't perform?" After the fight where Jason and I broke up, I was burning up inside with nowhere to vent, so I dragged my bestie to buy high-speed train tickets to the capital to clear my head. On the train, I scrolled through my chat history with Jason. It was still stuck on the message where I'd dumped him. He hadn't replied with a single word. Some people are clearly still alive, but it's like they're already dead. Fuming, I locked my screen and turned to my bestie to rant about him. You have no idea how over the line he was. My bestie frowned. How over the line? I pressed my lips together and started listing things like I was reading off a menu. The day before yesterday, he forgot to buy me a little cake. The day before that, he forgot my good morning kiss. And the day before that, he actually said the cherry tomatoes I bought were the same size as regular tomatoes. Hearing all this, my bestie nodded thoughtfully and agreed. Yeah, that's kinda too much. How can he not buy you cake? Me. Right? Right? So that's why you broke up with him. She gave me a puzzled look. Maybe she just couldn't wrap her head around me dumping the stupidly handsome Jason over a tiny cake. Seeing the confusion in her eyes, I went quiet for a few seconds. Of course that wasn't it. Just last night, right when we were about to make it to home base, he suddenly glanced at a message on his phone. The second he finished reading it, he pulled his pants back on and got up to leave, only tossing me a, "Go to bed early." At the time, I didn't think too much of it, but later I saw people in the group chat saying Jason's first love was back in town and had lost a game, so she had to call people out for drinks. I figured Jason must have gone to her. Between me and his first love, Jason chose his first love. When I realized that, I got so pissed I broke up with him on the spot. But there was no way in hell I was going to admit how humiliating it was getting stood up like that in the middle of the night. So I kept my tone righteous while my eyes were dodging all over the place. Of course not. You don't get it, he dresses super conservative every single night. More old-fashioned than me. I seriously suspect he can't perform. The second I said that, my bestie's jaw dropped. For real? Jason can't perform? No way, he doesn't look it at all. He's 6'2", and that nose is so promising. Looks good. Useless in practice, I said, all calm and sage-like, shaking my head. But just as I was about to keep roasting him, the middle-aged uncle next to us suddenly cut in. The uncle looked at us kindly and asked, "Miss, can I ask, that 6'2" guy you just called a can't-get-it-up loser, his name is Jason, right?" He was so polite that I didn't think anything of it. I just answered honestly, "Yeah, that's right." The moment I nodded, he gave me a long, deep look, sighed with genuine regret, then lowered his head and started madly typing away on his phone. I shook my head, still not overthinking it, and kept right on ranting. I roasted Jason with my bestie the whole ride, and by the end my mood had actually improved a lot. Right before getting off, I was even in such a good mood I wished the middle-aged uncle next to us a safe and happy trip. I did not expect that the moment the train stopped, and I had just stepped onto the platform, I'd see my ex heading straight for me with that stupidly handsome face, sneering, "You've never even slept with me, and you're out here telling my dad I can't perform? Wait, hold up. That guy just now was his dad?" I turned my head, and my gaze landed on the uncle who'd gotten off the train behind us. Maybe he felt me staring, because the gentle uncle gave me an awkward but still polite smile and sheepishly admitted, "Yeah, I'm his dad. Really sorry you've had to suffer." He'd clearly heard every word of my rant earlier and was now apologizing on Jason's behalf. Looking at him, apologizing so earnestly, I felt a wave of heat rush straight to my head, my toes starting to claw at the floor on their own. Oh, my God. I had just talked about my ex's bedroom performance right in front of his father. I was so mortified I could have dug myself an entire magic castle to hide in. I couldn't even bring myself to answer. I just made a vague little noise and turned to leave, but I hadn't even taken 2 steps when someone grabbed my hand. I turned back and saw Jason standing in front of me, with that handsome face dark as thunder, his black eyes locked on me. "We're not done talking," he said. "Where do you think you're going? And you breaking up with me out of nowhere like that. What the hell is that about? What did I do wrong? What are you so mad about? If you're upset, you have to say it. If you don't say anything, how am I supposed to know what you're upset about? Even a criminal getting the death penalty gets told exactly what he did wrong so he can die understanding, right?" Jason's flushed lips kept opening and closing, words pouring out non-stop. I just stared at him in a daze. This was the first time I'd ever seen him lose his cool like this. In my mind, he'd always been the composed, self-possessed, too-good-for-this-world type. You almost never saw his emotions spill over like this. I was a little surprised, but that didn't stop me from being mad. So I yanked my hand out of his grip and said stiffly, "You really don't know? Fine, then let me ask you. Where were you last night? Do you have any idea how long I waited for you last night? I even went out of my way to buy new pajamas, and you didn't spare them a single glance. And then you just bolted. I saw everything you went running off because your first love lost a dare and needed you to take care of her, right? That's why you're still wearing the same clothes today." I rattled off every bit of pent-up anger in one breath. When I finished, I looked up at Jason. I'd expected at least a flicker of guilt, or maybe some hint of shame. But instead, he just looked completely blank. It took a full 30 seconds before he reacted. Then he lifted his hand, long fingers pressing at his furrowed brows, and gave me a helpless look. "What on earth is going on in that head of yours? When did I ever go to a party? Last night I got a message from my dad. He said he'd had a fight with my mum, and she'd left for the capital alone ahead of schedule. So he told me to take the evening flight over and make sure she was okay. That's why I didn't change my clothes. If you don't believe me, smell for yourself. Do I have even a trace of alcohol on me?" After explaining, Jason even took 2 steps forward, undoing 2 buttons of his shirt and leaning in toward me. With him that close, my face lit up red on the spot. I shoved him back in a panic. You stop that. There are people around. So you're not mad anymore. We're not breaking up, right?" Jason didn't let me push him away. He caught my hands and pressed them to his chest, letting me feel his heart pounding like crazy. My own heart started racing to match his. Even though I was already a little moved, I still played stubborn. "You left without explaining anything. Of course I misunderstood. And why should I just take your word for it? I don't believe you." Hearing that, Jason looked even more helpless. He turned toward his dad. "Dad, back me up here?" The second he called out, his dad quickly smoothed away his amused smile and nodded at me seriously. Yes, it's true. With even his dad confirming it, I had no excuse left. I bit my lip, cheeks burning, and murmured, "Okay, fine. Then I'm not mad anymore." I thought Jason would finally let me go after that. But instead, the next second I heard him say with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Good, then it's my turn to be mad. You told my dad I can't perform. Let's settle that little accusation, shall we? You know, I'm not the kind of guy who takes a loss. I pay people back on the spot. Come on, sweetheart. Let your husband prove himself." With that, he wrapped an arm around me and started walking off. Judging by his expression, he wasn't joking. I immediately reached toward my bestie with a dramatic, slow-motion hand. "Save me." She instinctively reached for me. But before she could grab hold, Jason had already swept me into his arms and carried me away. Faced with this domineering version of Jason, I knew I was done for. Without my bestie to help, he got me all the way to the luxury hotel he'd booked. The moment the door opened, he tossed me onto the massive king-size bed. The mattress was soft, sure, but my head was still spinning. I struggled to sit up, but before I could get anywhere, he pinned my hands down. He leaned over me, holding both my wrists above my head with one hand, his voice low and rough. "Wait here. I'm taking a shower. Tonight, I'm clearing this misunderstanding once and for all." He said it through clenched teeth. Then, seeing my stunned face, he couldn't help asking, "What? Scared now? Still gonna run your mouth next time?" Thinking I was frightened, he released my hands and his tone softened. I stared at his ridiculously handsome face and swallowed hard. My mouth moved faster than my brain. "Who's scared? I'm just worried someone might not measure up. Hearing me tease him, Jason raised an eyebrow and let out a cold laugh. Fine, just don't cry later. Me. As if. I shook my head proudly. That look on my face clearly set him off even more. Right in front of me, he stripped down completely and walked into the bathroom. Not even 5 minutes later, he came back out. Seeing him finish showering that fast, I blinked in surprise. I opened my mouth to make a comment, but before I got a word out, he kissed me. I expected a long, intense battle, but instead, barely 3 minutes later, I heard him sigh. He was done. Finished before we even really started? I turned to look at him, eyes wide. He lay beside me, frustration all over that handsome face. I really tried, to think of the saddest things in my entire life in those few seconds, hoping to flatten the corners of my mouth. But they still curled upward, and then I burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha! That's it? That's all? Hearing me laugh in his face, Jason's handsome features turned bright red. After several minutes of sulking, he grabbed me with unwilling determination. I don't believe it. One more time. Give me another chance. I trembled with laughter as his restless hands started wandering again, and I didn't bother stopping him. I mean, it's only a few minutes. Not even enough to stop laughing. But before he could actually continue, someone interrupted. A loud voice boomed from the doorway. Son, I booked you an appointment with a men's health doctor. Let's go get checked. Stop tormenting that poor girl. Jason's face instantly went pitch black. I couldn't hold back. I burst into hysterical laughter. Ha 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 ha. Jason obviously didn't want to go, but under his mum's iron-fisted authority, he had no choice. He grabbed my hand, looking like the picture of grievance. Seeing his pitiful expression, I patted his shoulder in comfort. It's okay. We'll just get you checked. I know you're fine. This is just to ease your mum's mind. Hearing me, Jason glanced at me, uncertainly. Really, seeing him so crushed for once, I held back my laughter and answered solemnly. Of course. Don't worry, no matter what the results say, I'm not leaving you. Okay. Maybe because of that earlier failure, his fragile ego had taken a major hit. Right now, he looked like a breakable glass figurine. Say one wrong thing and I worried he might cry on the spot. Though, honestly, that image was kind of amusing. I chuckled quietly at the thought. Jason's mum was the one driving, and Jason held my hand the whole way, his handsome face completely stripped of confidence. Steeped in self-doubt. Seeing how dejected he looked, I comforted him with zero conscience. It's fine. I think maybe most first times are like that. But Jason didn't even respond. Head down, fully emo, silent the entire ride. When he finally entered the exam room, I stayed outside with his mum. She gave me a look, along with the same awkward but polite smile his dad had shown earlier, then apologized gently. Sorry, dear. I really haven't paid attention to my son's situation. You've truly been wronged. Don't worry if there's a problem. I definitely won't let him hold you back. Hearing how kind she was, I shook my head. It's okay, Auntie. Maybe because I still stood by Jason. She looked even more warmly at me, her tone unbelievably gentle. After half an hour, Jason finally came out, his handsome face bright red. He met my eyes, then handed me the report with a flushed expression. I froze for a second, then lowered my head to read it. I didn't understand all the medical jargon up top, but I understood the doctor's plain language conclusion. Length is fine. Hardness is fine. Just lacks exercise. Poor stamina. Reading the final line, I looked up at Jason, about to offer him a few comforting words, but before I could speak, his mum moved faster. She kicked Jason and scolded. That's what you get for sitting in front of the computer all day. Embarrassing yourself like this. Hearing her, I felt the same way. So I echoed her immediately. Auntie's right! Jason, you really need to work out. Seeing me join in, Jason actually let out a helpless laugh, stepped forward, wrapped an arm around my waist, and murmured in a low voice, All right then, wife. Guess you'll have to work hard and train with me. Hearing that, my eyes flew wide. Oh no. This was bad, very, very bad. As it turned out, my guess was absolutely right. After we got home, Jason started dragging me to work out non-stop. First, it was the normal kind at the gym. Later, it turned into the not-so-normal kind. Kitchen, bathroom, couch. He had me training everywhere. His 3 minutes slowly stretched longer and longer. He looked refreshed after every session. Meanwhile, my back hurt, and my legs felt like noodles. One night, I finally couldn't take it anymore and kicked the restless man right off the bed. I wrapped myself in the blanket and declared without looking back, "I'm sleeping alone tonight." Seeing my attitude, Jason blinked and tried to negotiate. "Wife, the guest room's cold," he said as he tugged at my blanket. But was I going to let him win that easily? Absolutely not. I yanked my blanket back and said mercilessly, "Perfect. Cool you down." When I didn't budge, Jason let out a soft sigh. Hearing that, I thought he was giving up. But I underestimated him. He switched tactics. "Wife, do you think I've improved lately? Do I have your approval?" His dark eyes were full of hope. Meeting his gaze, I frowned a little. I didn't understand why he was suddenly asking this. Even though I didn't get it, I still answered honestly. I guess it's okay." "So what? What are you trying to say?" I eyed him warily. He better not pull another trick on me. My waist was still hurting. Seeing my suspicious look, Jason smiled, his eyes brightening. Then from who knows where, he produced a big diamond ring, slid it onto my finger, and said with a grin, "Great, then give me a title." I stared at him in confusion. "A title?" Seeing I didn't get it, Jason pouted and explained pitifully. "You don't know how long I've wanted to propose, but my mom said if I can't get your approval in that aspect, she won't let me propose. She said I can't ruin your life." Woo-woo. By the end, Jason's usually cool voice had an unmistakable hint of a sob. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help laughing. So handsome, so obedient, who could say no to that? So, after only a few seconds of hesitation, I nodded. Okay. The moment I agreed, Jason's eyes lit up. Every hint of grievance vanished, and he tackled me onto the bed with a bright smile. "Great. Then tonight I'll work even harder and live up to my wife's trust." Wait, can I take that back? Of course not. And there was zero chance of escape. The next morning, Jason posted our engagement announcement. The picture showed him holding my hand with a diamond ring. I glanced at the comments. They were all blessings and congratulations. I didn't read further and just closed my phone. Over the next few days, I worked with Jason on wedding preparations. I didn't expect any trouble. But that afternoon, while I was out buying home goods, I ran into Jessica. Seeing her near my neighborhood, I paused. I had always known Jessica was Jason's first love from his younger years. She went abroad when he liked her the most. She'd only returned not long ago and immediately started contacting Jason. Thinking of the late-night message she sent him last time, my expression chilled. I turned to leave, but Jessica clearly had no intention of letting me go. She stepped right in front of me, blocking my path. Chin lifted as she said, "You must be Isabel, right?" Her tone wasn't friendly. I was annoyed, but still answered, "Yeah. What do you want?" Seeing my attitude, a hint of displeasure crossed her delicate face. She said bluntly, "Jason only likes you as my substitute. You're just a stand-in who gave you the confidence to act superior." It's hilarious. Her words made me frown. What nonsense. Seeing I looked confused, Jessica smirked even more proudly. She folded her arms and said, "Jason likes you because you look a bit like me. If you don't believe it, think carefully. Did he ever give you a rabbit lantern? Matcha mooncakes? Let me tell you, those are my favorite things." By the end, her voice was dripping with smugness. Hearing her, I fell silent. It was true when Jason first pursued me. He did give me those things. Back then, I was thrilled, thinking he was being thoughtful just for me. I never imagined they were Jessica's preferences, so I was just the backup choice. Thinking that, the excitement I'd had about marrying Jason instantly cooled. A sour ache spread through my chest, but I refused to lose face in front of Jessica. So I said coldly, "Oh, and what does that have to do with me?" Then I walked away. Back home, I numbly dug out the rabbit lantern from a drawer. Jason had given it to me 3 years ago for Mid-Autumn Festival. I'd cherished it all this time, but now I knew it was all just my wishful thinking. I sighed, took out my phone, and sent Jason a message. "I don't want to get married anymore. I don't want to be anyone's substitute." Then I blocked him right away. I knew Jason liked me, but I didn't want a love built on being a replacement. After that, I moved into my bestie's place. For several days, I ignored all of Jason's calls and messages. I drowned myself in heartbreak. My bestie, afraid I'd spiral, turned on some dramas for me. Her intention was to cheer me up, but the moment it started, It was another storyline of a girl suffering over love. When I saw the male lead write Yuan Yuan Lei Ching on the table, I snapped. Screw your Lei Ching, trash man. My bestie saw me blow up and didn't even dare breathe. She immediately turned off the TV, probably terrified I'd throw something at it. Seeing how carefully she tiptoed around me, I broke down even more and clung to her, weeping dramatically. Woo! You don't understand. I'm suffering. All those years of love and time, wasted, totally wasted. I liked him so much. Who would have thought he only saw me as a stand-in? I thought that only happened in TV dramas, but it's actually happening to me. My life is so bitter. I ranted non-stop, while my bestie ranted along with me. We went on and on until I finally ran out of steam. You really believe, Jessica? She asked gently, tilting her head. Her voice was soft, probing. I blinked at her. What do you mean? Wiping my tears, I stared at her blankly. Seeing how slow I was, my bestie poked my forehead in frustration. Jason's been good to you for years. You think that was fake? Have you ever seen a stand-in who's treated as spoiled as you? If you were just a substitute, acting like a princess, he would have dumped you long ago. You're really too deep in your own head. She shook her head like a wise grandmother. I blinked again, my already limited brain power stalling completely. Before I could respond, my bestie sighed, got up, and opened the door. The next second, Jason appeared at the doorway, his black eyes fixed right on me. For a moment, our gazes locked. After a few seconds, I coldly looked away, saying nothing. My bestie glanced at me, then turned to Jason and said icy cold, "Explain everything to my girl properly. Otherwise, I won't let you off." Hearing my bestie's words, Jason nodded seriously and took a few steps toward me, trying to explain. But I didn't want to hear a single word. I turned and walked straight back to the room. I was about to shut the door when he blocked it. I shot him a cold look. If you have something to say it fast. Then get out. I had no interest in getting tangled up with someone who treated me as a stand-in. Seeing my attitude, Jason let out a helpless sigh and said, "Jessica and I are long over. There's nothing between us now." You're really going to believe an outsider over your own husband? When he said that, a hint of grievance flashed in his dark eyes. Seeing that look, I hesitated for a few seconds, but I still couldn't help asking, "But..." She said the rabbit lantern and the matcha mooncakes you bought me were her favorites. If you gave me things she likes, isn't that treating me like her substitute? I expected Jason to look guilty. Instead, I felt a flick to my forehead. Ow! I covered my head and stared at him in confusion. Jason let out a frustrated laugh and looked at me helplessly. You silly girl. Why do you believe whatever people tell you? Didn't you post on your moments that you envied people who had that rabbit lantern? That's why I bought it for you. And the matcha mooncakes. I know you love matcha, so I made them for you. What do you mean they were her favorites? I've never given her any of that. It's pure nonsense. Hearing his explanation, I suddenly remembered. It was true. I did repost that lantern online, and 2 days later he showed up with one. It had just been so long ago that I'd forgotten, and fell right into Jessica's trap. Thinking about it, I felt a little guilty, and fiddled with my fingers. Then I weakly argued, "But your friend said you used to really like her. And back then, when she went abroad, you were upset for a long time." Jason pinched the bridge of his nose, didn't answer immediately, and instead took a deep breath before asking, "Baby, hypothetically, if someone you liked abandoned you, would you still like them?" Hearing that, I hesitated, but instinctively blurted out, "Of course not. I'd be impressed if I didn't hate them." Before I finished, Jason cut in. Exactly. She trampled on my feelings. The fact that I don't hate her is impressive enough. And she thinks I'd still be hung up on her? She wishes. I'm not stupid. Why would I ignore the person in front of me and run back to someone who dumped me? I know better than that. Jason finished, then slowly sat beside me and pulled me into his arms. His voice was soft as he held me. And in my heart, you're one of a kind. Never a replacement. Hearing him whisper love into my ear, my cheeks warmed. Sweetness bloomed in my chest. I couldn't help smiling as I teased. Then what do you like about me? That I'm pretty? Generous? Cute? I assumed he'd compliment me. Instead, Jason patted my head like a dad and said kindly, "I like your silly little brain. You're adorably dumb." Excuse me? Did he hear himself? I shoved him away and glared, furious. But a second later, he pulled me right back, laughing happily. I like how bright and sunny you are. Like a sunflower. Every time I see you, you're shining so warm and beautiful. And yeah, you're a bit slow sometimes when we're together. But it's fine. Your husband is smart. We complement each other. He was technically insulting me, and yet I was both annoyed and secretly delighted. Ugh, who confesses like this? And why does it still sound sweet? After that, we made up. I moved out of my bestie's place and back into Jason's home. We still bickered sometimes, but nothing serious. Time passed quickly, and soon it was our wedding day. The venue was lively and packed. My friends, including my bestie, were guarding the door for the door games, but the red envelopes being shoved through the crack were way too many. And the groomsmen were all ridiculously handsome. My bridesmaids were wavering fast, ready to surrender. Except for Julia, who completely ignored the money, stood firm at the door, and shouted, "No way! Jason, you must say Jason loves Isabel 100 times! Or this door is not opening today!" Watching her resolute back, I suddenly recalled how 10 years ago she had stood just as firmly in front of me, shielding me from bullies and cold stares. And now she was doing it again, making sure my future would be good. To have such a best friend, how lucky was I? I watched her count every single Jason loves Isabel, shouted from outside. Only after all 100 did she reluctantly open the door. Jason rushed in, scooped me into his arms, and Julia, eyes red, smiled at me and said, "Belle, you'd better be happy." I smiled back and answered, "We're staying happy together." And I meant it. After marrying Jason, I bought the big villa next door for my bestie. We often sat together gossiping about Jason, then gossiping about her new suitor. He was one of Jason's close friends. He'd fallen for Julia at first sight during the wedding, and pursued her relentlessly for 3 months. Flowers, gifts, rides, everything. Anyone else would have melted long ago. But Julia stayed rock solid. I was curious and couldn't help asking, "Julia, what are you thinking? If you don't like him, we can kick him out." Julia blinked, then said firmly, "He was the guy who pushed the door the hardest at your wedding. I must teach him a lesson. And anyway, it's only been 3 months. What's the rush? If he can't even be patient, that's not real liking," she huffed. Hearing that, I nodded in agreement and secretly sent Jason a message. "I asked for you. Julia doesn't like men with no patience. Tell your buddy to hang in there." Me. Men without patience get dumped. Me. Jason replied instantly. The next second, I received his messages. "Wife is right. Patience is important. Jason, I'm not like him. I'm very patient. Jason, I already made soup, and am patiently waiting for my wife to come home." The apron photo he sent made me laugh. I glanced over at my bestie. How lucky. To have a husband who loves me, and a best friend who loves me. How incredibly lucky my life is.